Yeah, and I imagine what the fans of Resident Evil are probably going through when Resident Evil 7 came out. They're like, man, what is this first person game doing with the Resident Evil title? And I can agree that Resident Evil 7 should have never been called Resident Evil. It really should have been its own thing. Um, and the only reason why I say that is just it does deviate a lot from the original gameplay, but it does have a lot of little aspects from the series, like the puzzle solving and stuff like that. It's just the story just seems so different. It just has little tiny connections, but it feels as I don't know if it would have been as popular with its own unique title. Uh,
Yeah, and I think a lot of developers do that. You know, they'll basically use the name of something to sell something else, to sell a new idea or to sell, a brand new game. They'll call it, "Hey, this is this game. You remember this game. You've been
mhm.
playing it for years." But it's actually not really.
Yeah, I
Yeah, I'm
mean,
trying to think of there are definitely other games that recently have done that too, where it's like this is not, X game or whatever. It's like this is something completely different. You should have just named it something completely different, and maybe it would have stood well on its own, as a new concept.
yeah, I mean, just look at Elden Ring. I mean, it's got a totally different title, totally different story. Improved mechanics, and it just easily became one of the best games ever made.
Right.
And it's
Yeah.
totally
From Software has
original.
done
I mean,
well with that. Yeah.
obviously it has borrowed mechanic aspects, but it's used to its best potential currently.
Yeah. I agree. Like you can have things that are, inspired or even spiritual sweet sequels to things without actually calling it the same name just to basically sell on the name of your intellectual property alone. It just doesn't work sometimes.
And I mean, obviously, I have a lot of problems with Elden Ring, but I think that's the reason why I love it so much. It's just I think my favorite game of all time is not going to be 10 out of 10 perfect. I mean, it's going to have problems that's going to you know it's going to have more characteristics with the issues that it has. Like
Right.
for
I
example,
think I see what you mean.
yeah, and like for example, I think in like a top five, The Last of Us is probably in there somewhere. And in my opinion, that's closer to a 10 out of 10 than Dark Souls. And that the reason why, I mean, see, Dark Souls is at my number one, and maybe Dark Souls is at 8 out of 10, and Last of Us is like maybe 9 out of 10. But the reason why Dark Souls is on top is because of the replay value. I can just jump into Dark Souls and just find a ton of stuff to do. But The Last of Us, I kind of have to scrape the bottom of the barrel to get a little bit more of a different experience, especially with like grounded mode, little to no ammo and not taking any damage. So there's not really a whole lot I can go back to with The Last of Us. Like I said, just scraping the bottom of the barrel. But it is a very well designed game, and I don't really have too many problems with it, compared to Dark Souls.
Right. A masterpiece doesn't have to be a 10 out of 10.
Yep.
And I think a lot of people have the problem with that concept, when it comes to, reviewers giving out a score, for example, when Zelda Breath of the Wild came out and they gave it a master, like IGN gave it a masterpiece. Same thing with Elden Ring, like clearly there are issues with the game. They're not saying, oh, this game is completely perfect in every aspect. The story
Mm-hmm.
is perfect, the graphics are perfect, there's no bugs, there's no, the game might have some of these issues, but the experience, the complete package is a masterpiece. It's worthy of calling it that. So even though the game might have problems, that doesn't, you know, that doesn't take away from it being a
Right.
masterpiece.
Oh yes, most definitely. Um, what other games? I mean, heck, Overcooked 2 is another game I would probably consider almost perfect. I mean, each level is incredibly well designed and has its own characteristics and challenge. I mean, I'm so glad that they were able to put everything into one package for the remastered on PS5, and then they put it on PS4. Um, But man, I could play the heck. There's so many hours I can put in that game alone, just trying to figure out better ways to send out the food and moving out. Um, I guess this
I've heard
again,
of that game.
huh?
Moving Out. I've heard of that game. Hold on, let me look it up real quick. 'Cause I think um, it looked interesting to me.
And that can kind of
Okay,
lead
yeah,
into
it
our
is.
next topic. But yeah, moving out. That was a really fun platinum. One of my favorite platinums. Uh, yeah, I mean, basically, if once you see the trailer, you'll see what I'm talking about. But you move furniture out of the house into a truck, and you can do it in the most chaotic ways possible. Like just throw beds and chairs out of the window, just destroy everything, and it's got very specific challenges. Now, my biggest complaint about the game is that some of the challenges are way too cryptic. They'll give you like a vague little hint, and you'll spend hours just trying to achieve what you think they mean. But other than that, I mean, just incredible experience that I recommend to almost anyone. I think it's a game that everyone can enjoy. I mean, even if you don't want to do all the challenges.
Yeah, I'm looking at it. It definitely looks. It kind of reminds me of. I mean, if you think about it, it kind of reminds me of Overcooked in a way.
Yeah,
You know,
that's
this
what drew
just
me
that
to it.
chaotic nature of managing a bunch of stuff at the same time.
Um, so talking about speaking of moving out, the sequel was announced a few weeks ago.
Oh, is it? What is it? Is it still called Moving Out
Yeah, it's
or?
moving out too,
Oh, okay.
and they finally brought in online play which is something I really wasn't really asking for because I just don't play games online, but apparently the community really wanted it for obvious reasons, but I just hope they
Right.
go all out crazy with the level designs. They need to get challenging. The DLC for the first moving out was incredible. The level design was well, half of the levels are really good. Some levels are kind of gimmicky, and it just doesn't really do a whole lot challenge wise. But still, just the what they were doing in the DLC, I really hope I get to see more of in the second game.